So as I mentioned, in order for the two devices to detect a loop, they would have to communicate using a language. And I'm saying that let's assume the language is spanning tree, and which is spanning tree anyway. It helps us to block a port. But how does it really happen? How would they decide which port to go to or which port to block? And this is what we're going to learn now. So in this diagram, we have three switches, switch A, switch B, and switch C. At the beginning, so from our previous one, we saw that they were all amber links, and then it get to a point, some of them become green and one of them was blocked. It's just because of spanning tree, but this is how it happens. Spanning tree has a few processes. So the first one is in order for them to decide which port to be blocking, first of all, they need to decide which device will be the root bridge. So when I say the root bridge, it means that, so basically, assuming you have two towns, and the towns are, so the towns are situated maybe far apart, but in order for you to get to those two towns, you need to go through a bridge. And so there's some kind of water here. So the root bridge is going to be like a third device. So assuming for these devices, we have three devices. But with the root bridge, we're saying that this is where everybody will pass. So this device is more like the middle device. So we have to decide which device will be our middle device. The device that will be our middle device is what we refer to as a root bridge. It means that every traffic will be passing through it. So if we detect that there's a loop, we need to decide one direction, and that direction will have only one device that will be more like the exit point. So after we choose a root bridge, we have to also look at what we call a root port. Okay, so before that, when we have a root bridge, the next thing will be all the other switches. So assuming this is a root bridge, meaning the best switch in to some extent, the other ones will be non-root bridges, non-root bridge, non-root bridge. It means that these ones will not be the middle switches. It means that everybody, even if I want to go to this guy, I cannot go to him directly. So non-root bridges cannot communicate with each other directly. We would have to go through the root bridge. So the non-root bridge is saying that I am not the bridge, meaning don't go through me, go through the bridge. Otherwise, you end up destroying yourself. So the next thing will be, after we decide a root bridge based on spanning tree, the rest of the devices will become non-root bridges. And then the next thing will be, once we decide who the non-root bridges are, we have to also find a link between ourselves, so the non-root bridge and the root bridge. How do we get to the root bridge from the non-root bridge? We have to go through, either we're going through here or we're going through here, but we have to decide which direction is the best direction. So let's assume this one is the best direction. This link is the best. So on this switch, which is a non-root bridge, we need to decide a port on that device, which we'll call the root port. So root port is more like the port that will help us get to the root bridge. It's like your gate to the bridge. And you only have, normally you will have one root port. It is the best link to your root bridge. The root port is not on your root bridge. It is on your non-root bridge. This is something that you have to remember. Your root port is just saying, how do I get to the root? It is a port that takes you to the root, but it is not on the root bridge. It is on the non-root bridge. And so assuming this is the best port for this device, this will also be the root port for this device. So we've gotten to know about a few things. We know about the root bridge, we know about the non-root bridges, we know about the root ports. So these are the three main things. And then because we have this, we need to look for what we call a designated port, and then one port to be blocking. And so technically, this is how spanning tree will work.